Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. As usual, welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I am Anah Parreli, and obviously I make the content here. And so basically the Sunday yarning is just an opportunity for me to respond to perhaps any comments that might have been made throughout the week on some of the videos that I feel need to be looked at a little bit further. Other times it's really just giving you a progress report of some of the things that are happening on the channel. Now, before I get into the content, I'm not sticking to a transcript today. I'm actually being a bit slack, such as life. You have those days. If you're new to the channel, you won't know I put timing stamps in, and I do that in the description so you can jump to the areas of interest for you. I'm trying to be on time today with this video, and the aim is to keep it as brief as possible as well, because last week's was such a long one, and that was because I hadn't loaded one up in between times. I'd gone 2 weeks before I loaded it. Anyway, where am I going from here, seeing as I don't have a transcript? Just a reminder, look, I invite you to leave your comments. It's great. You know, if you find something on any of the videos, feel free to add your own contributions, because I am by no means the be-all and end-all of knowledge when it comes to crystals or even chakras or any of the information I put up. That's just my information, generally stuff that I've accumulated along the years, and other times it's through doing a bit of research. Sometimes it's a mix of both. Sometimes it's through talking to people. Please feel free to even just say g'day or let me know where you're from, what country. That's always helpful as well. What else have I got to say? Just basically, look, I'll get into it. You might hear the dog. I'm hoping he's going to be quiet today. Fingers and toes crossed. Oh, for those that are interested, my accent is Australian. I'm very Australian in my accent, and I'm currently based and have been for oh my goodness me, the years have gone so quickly. 10 years I've been in Perth now, Perth, Western Australia. So I always like to start my videos out with, gratitude for something that may have come up during the week. Quite often, if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that on the gratitude page, I'm usually grateful for the birds or the weather. This week, I'm actually grateful for both of them as well, because I just feel so blessed. We've had some really good weather, and I'm hoping it's going to stick around for a little while, because it's been a very long, harsh winter for us here in Perth, Western Australia. And in fact, I can probably hear people in Canada having a laugh, going harsh. Well, it's harsh for us, okay? But anyway, my gratitude is this week for elasticized waist on your pants, okay? Which we're not looking at here. Reason being, and I'm taking a light approach to this, is because I did the event this week, and of course I overdid it, as I regularly do. And what happened was I actually strained muscles along my flank and under my arm, and then you know what it's like, you end up with that reverberating pain, which ended up transferring over and giving me upper back pain. I think I dislodged one of the vertebrae or something like that. Must have been hitting a nerve. But look, anyway, suffice to say, it's been extremely painful, and I'm just trying to look after it and minimize movement while it heals and repairs itself. And let me give you the tip: if you don't have elasticized pants, it's really hard to take care of your base functions, like going to the loo and actually having a shower, because I challenge you to try and pull your pants up and do your flies and all the rest of it when you don't have elasticized weights and loose fitting tops, I must say. So thank God for them is what I say. On a more serious note, I actually have typed a little bit of a transcript here for some points directed to the person that calls themselves Philofizzy, and this is because Philofizzy made some comments on the Healer's Gold video that I put up referring to boundaries, and then we had a brief discussion about counselling. Yes, I've got a bachelor's of social work, and I didn't graduate, but I did the units for Masters of Counselling. I never actually graduated from that because, to be honest, I couldn't be bothered going and doing the field placements again. But either way, I did do the text type stuff. Anyway, getting back to the theme, the reason why I'm talking about triangulation again is because obviously triangulation can be very unhealthy and difficult. within relationships and to have peace within relationships. It can create a huge amount of conflict, and that's what I referred to last week. But in the comments to Philophysi, I mentioned there are, and I should have mentioned it last week, there are times when it is healthy to triangulate, and this is when you basically need professional help. So most of the conflict happens because there is a communication breakdown. And anyway, the reason why you would go to a professionally qualified person is because they can act as a mediator for that, and they're qualified and competent to do it. If we go and speak to our friends about it, they generally are going to have that biased perspective, which is going to not necessarily be helpful. And I'll talk about that in a moment why. But the idea is that when you have a professional person in there, they're usually trained to be unbiased, non-judgmental, and trained to encourage and open up authentic and honest communication in non-aggressive ways as part of the couple. And now that couple could be mother and child, it could be intimate partners or whatever, but about problem solving what's going wrong with them in their relationship that's creating strain, shall we say. So the professional will actually help each of the parties to look at the problem from a different perspective and through a different lens. And a lot of the time, so when I say it would be beneficial, examples of this might be due to upbringing. So let's say you've got a romantic partnership happening, there's a lot of conflict, one party doesn't see any problem at all with their behaviour or their communication style because they were brought up in an environment, and I'll use direct examples here, where name calling is, a drop of a hat. They just will call their loved ones really quite critical names. Could be you're an idiot, you're X and Y, or you're so stupid or whatever. And they don't see that as being problematic because they've been grown up in an environment where, actually I would probably say in an Australian environment, so using my context with this, we were brought up, my generation was brought up to laugh and the world laughs with you, and to not take offence at things like name calling. And if I was to look at the history of that would probably go back to colonisation and build them up tough, you know what I mean? Because we're also taught those things of crying doesn't solve your problem, suck your tears up, all of that kind of thing. So you may as well say, within a modern perspective, very emotionally insensitive. Now, other types of people will have been brought up in an environment where calling names is just absolutely not on, and so they get highly offended and hurt. And a lot of the time too, if we're thinking about this might be in a family environment, perhaps, you've got a father and mother and one of them's a name caller to the children, it can have enduring negative impacts on the psyche of an individual. So they might be arguing about that kind of thing. But by going and telling your mates all about it, it doesn't actually resolve the problem, and sometimes it can compound it. So this is why my belief is that appropriate triangulation is to go to a competent and qualified and trained person. But I want to put this disclaimer in here as well, Philophysi, that in my experience of working in the field, not everybody that I met along the way actually was capable of being impartial, unbiased, and non-judgmental. And that's absolutely vital to being effective as a mediator and a counsellor. And I'll just, before I go into that, because I'm not delivering a course or providing supervision, that's outside of my area of expertise as well, on how to be a competent mental health worker. But what I will say is what underpinned my professional ethos that I had incorporated as part of my life before I did my training in social work and with counselling as well. There was something else I was going to say there. Just, I think just the business of having that ethos that I've just discussed there as well, and being aware that when it comes to trauma, you cannot lie to traumatized people because they will pick it up. Okay, so that's my biggest tip for anybody entering into the mental health field, is not everybody that you meet that's called a professional is going to actually be professional. It doesn't mean that they're going to be malicious, but they might not be the best fit for you. And that is part of, one, learning how to seek a competent professional in the field. And the other thing is, if we're working in the field, to really take a look at and make sure that we use a reflective journal so that we can actually find our biases so that we don't transfer and project them over to other people. Just going to the trauma business as well, because trauma is often associated with being lied to or being let down and feeling betrayed. This is why people with a trauma history, they are actually highly attuned and sensitive to inconsistencies between a professional mental health worker, what they say, what they believe, and what they do. They can tell when they're being insincere. So it's always better to be really honest. If you feel that you're outside your comfort zone, just be honest and say, look, I'm not sure that I'm the best person to work with you. It's out of my skill base, but I'm prepared to give it a shot if that suits you. And because there is such a shortage of, certainly in Australia, of qualified personnel, often people will turn around and say, well, look, okay, we'll just work with that and see how we go. And if it becomes a problem down the track, at least you can openly discuss that. If you're out of your depth as a professional, you can turn around and say, I'm out of my depth. And the person that you're working with, the person with trauma, will respect your honesty and the fact that you know your limitations. Now, anyway, here's the other bit. Now, I didn't start my studies of social work. I think it was I think it was 2013. I did some training in mental health, providing support work, and that became my pathway to go to university and do the Bachelor of Social Work. But what I did far early in the piece was I found the book, The Four Agreements by Toltec Wisdom. If people are interested in this, what I used to do back in the day, long time back in the day, I used to go into bookshops and close my eyes and basically put out to the universe and my guides that they direct my hand to a book that would be the most beneficial for me, that I needed as part of my own self-development and growth. So I think I found the Four Agreements in about 2003. Now, I've written the Four Agreements there, but what I will sort of explain is when I first bought that book, I realised now in hindsight, I had forgotten about it, that I struggled to understand some of the concepts in it. And this is really quite amusing in hindsight, because I've still got the book, and a couple of years ago I picked it up just when I think I'd been packing and unpacking or something like that. But I saw that I had actually in handwriting written comments with question marks around some of these concepts, which was question marks, so that I could reflect on them, meditate on them, and try and get clarity for me as to what they meant. So this is just a strategy I employed. It might be beneficial for other people to do the same. But anyway, I broke and unpacked these four agreements down to my understanding. And I just want to actually acknowledge here too that I'm not being paid to promote these books by Don Miguel Ruiz. I just really found them very beneficial in the early days of me developing my understandings and spirituality and just developing myself as well. And when we adopt these principles, as I said, I adopted them in my life in general and throughout various fields of work, long before I started doing the mental health training and that was to be impeccable with your word, is basically to have integrity, to say what you mean what you say. If you're honest and you commit yourself to something, then that's what you do, okay? If you tell somebody that you're going to do something, then you need to do it, because if you don't, then you're basically being unreliable, you're letting people down, and it's a lack of integrity. It comes back at you in ways that you may not necessarily really desire. Okay, the other one that is easier to look at and speak about initially is this business of don't make assumptions. Do not make assumptions, because assumptions generally are about, well, they just lead to disaster. Let's be real. If we make an assumption about what motivates another person or what their intention is, it just really is a recipe for disaster. Okay, we're not going to know unless we actually ask the person. We might we might actually, through our assumptions, come to a totally incorrect conclusion of that thought or about a person. Now, also, the thing with assumptions, I actually was just going to make a point here that this is for philophysi as well. When we talk about these 4 agreements, if you're going to university and doing submissions, you're not going to be able to use the 4 agreements or the 5th agreement as a reference tool. But what you can do is take aim from it or inspiration from these books, and then perhaps do a Google. If you're doing the counselling degree, you could do the importance of having integrity in your relationships with your clients, that mean what you say what you mean. Why is that so important when you're talking with your clients? The business of making assumptions about a person is, I think there is a term for it. It's definitely called a cognitive distortion. I think they call it crystal ball gazing. I think that's the cognitive distortion that they call it. And you could look at why that is a problem for your clients when you're working with them, and also for yourself. This is the beauty of doing studies like this, because I actually feel that I gained a lot personally out of doing my studies and understanding and insight into my family unit. So what are we talking about next? Don't take anything personally, okay? Because what would that be? Okay, if we take things personally, what that might translate to in a mental health environment or profession would be the transfer and projection of one person's issues onto another. And that is, somebody turns around, that one finger, what's the saying? One finger pointing at you, 2 fingers pointing back at me. That is, when somebody's pointing the finger at you and saying you need to, you should, you must, and I've actually got videos on this as well, that is a transfer and projection. What that person is actually saying is, I need you to do X and Y because I'm not comfortable with what you're doing. You know what I mean? So it's all about the interpretation of things. So if you feel that you're starting to take something personally, then really step back from it emotionally and have a bit of reflection on it. What is actually at the basis of this? Because usually it is, as I say, that transfer and projection. When we talk about always do your best, which is the 4th part of the agreement, in my experience, I actually believe that's probably up there as the top bit of wisdom that you can gain out of these books. And that is because if you think about it and reflect on it, whether it's you or whether it's your clients, the bottom line is, if we're only doing activities half-heartedly, or tokenistically, when somebody turns around and says to us, well, that was pathetic, you were pathetic, you know what I mean? There's a risk that we're going to take that on board and then beat ourselves up and think, yeah, I let them down. I you know what I mean? That whole disappointment in self, there becomes a whole range of unhealthy thinking styles about who and what we are, and we're lazy, we could have done this, we could have done that. But when we genuinely and sincerely always do our best, then we also recognize our own limitations and that our best may not be what other people would like or expect from us, but we know sincerely it's the best that we can do at any given time. And if you're doing the best that you can do at any given time, then it doesn't matter what people say about you, because you can hold your head high. That also is about integrity as well, and self-forgiveness and self-awareness too. So then the next one is actually the be skeptical bit. And look, these kind of information, it's not necessarily for counsellors, but I tell you, it is the best wisdom I think that I managed to access in the early days. That 5th agreement, be skeptical and learn to listen, that actually translated into my lingo is, don't believe a word that you're told, learn to watch, learn to observe, listen to what you're being told, because that goes back to that the business where sometimes people's mouth don't say what they're actually thinking. You know what I mean? And not everybody is authentic, honest and transparent. Sometimes people filter their truth. But the other thing is too, that when people are telling you what they think is the truth, that's their truth, and it's not necessarily based on fact. And there's always more than one perspective. That goes back to the triangulation. There is always more than one perspective around a situation, and the truth sits somewhere in the middle of one person's truth and another. And if we remove that whole judgment and just go, okay, I'm going to hear you. By the way, when I say don't believe a word you say, or you're told, um, it doesn't mean that you disbelieve them either, because that's the judgmental perspective. You just listen to what is being said, and then from there you will start to learn to discern the truth from all the different perspectives. Anyway, that's the end of that conversation. So I shall move on with the channel and website updates. So, yes, as far as the website is concerned and my little progress report for you all, well, it's actually happening very, very slowly. No surprises there. It's been happening very slowly for a long time now. So, yes, as far as I have definitely made some progress though, okay? So the throat content and the brow content is up on the chakra page. I'm currently working on the crown chakra content, and from there, once I've completed that, I think I might do some other pages, but certainly the Earth Star and the Kundalini, Bindu chakra and the Rainbow chakra are next on the agenda anyway. But I think before I start the other chakras, as in the Kundalini and that, I think once I've done the crown chakra, I'll go straight into doing the content for spiritual hygiene, centering and grounding, and potentially even aura protection. And this is because I feel they're actually vital for health and well-being for all of us. So I'll probably go back and forth between the chakra pages and this content, but I'll let you know how I go. Hopefully we'll see some progress. As far as the community event goes, well, yes, actually, we did have that on Wednesday. And obviously, as I mentioned before, that's where I hurt myself overloading the suitcase and trying to get it back into the boot of the car. But bottom line is I haven't listed the new one. Just a reminder, it's every second Wednesday of the month. It was actually quite an interesting night the other night because we ended up with some new faces, and we ended up with some no-shows. So there was a few cancellations, a few no-shows, which was a bit disappointing, but I understand, they've got family commitments. One person wasn't able to attend because they were moving house, another couldn't get a babysitter, stuff like that. Life happens, life gets in the way. But having said that, we still had a reasonably sized group, and it ended up being really fun because we had Karen there. She was able to give about 4 medium readings actually to people that attended. Not me, unfortunately. I was looking forward to having a chat with Karen, but I was able to do tarot readings myself, and I think I delivered about 4 or 5 of them that night as well, which was just really fun. I enjoyed it, and we also ended up with a new lady there, Olwen. She was able to give a couple of tarot messages as well. So no, it was just, I think, really good. And for a laugh, we had such a diverse group that it did take a Canadian lady to point out to us that there was actually only 3 Australians there out of the whole group. We had a couple of Estonians, we had a couple of Indians. Olwen, of course, was Welsh. What did we have? We did have the Canadian. Yes, anyway, it's only 3 Aussies there. Anyway, what else have I got here? Yes, just that. So look, I will do the promotion for the next event. I'll load that over the next week so people can start booking if you're interested. Now, if you are coming along to the event and you want to see specific crystals, I would ask that you actually just let me know in advance, because I'm going to try and reduce the amount of stuff that I put in the car. Things like the Cheyenne Jade Buddha and the Lemon Jade Buddha, they're actually quite heavy. So if you want to see them, then let me know and I'll bring one along, or one of each, so that you can see it. But I'm not going to bring it along unless you actually ask for it. I'll probably end up, what's not on this slide, but something that you may as well say I'm a pusher of, is actually the fireworks stone. I've got some wonderful towers, and I think I'm going to pull those out of the box as well, because they're quite heavy too. So yeah, I will try and just really reduce the amount of stuff that I'm bringing. But just a reminder, if you want me to bring something along, go through the YouTube Crystal Magic playlist. Most of that stuff I have at least a sample of. So if there is a crystal that you want to see more of or have a feel of, hold it in your hand, let me know. leave a comment, I'll bring it along. So we're going to be able to fly through this particular video because as it happens, I think we all know that I haven't actually been loading a lot of stuff. But anyway, just to bring to your attention, the Mystic Merlinite video has been loaded and I have spheres of this. I've got it in, I think probably 7 centimetre spheres, and I also have some very nice palm stones of the Mystic Merlinite if you want me to bring that along to the event. I don't have the Tai Chi stone yet, but it is on its way. However, what was I going to say? As for the video, it was meant to go up this week and one thing led to another. Of course, it didn't happen, but I'm going to finish that today. I've just got to record the audio for that and then I will load it so that it's published tomorrow night. But anyway, I'm not sure if I'll have a sample of that for the next event. And if I do, it's only going to be a couple of laughing Buddhas, if I recall correctly. And then next week, hopefully on Tuesday, if I can stick to my time management, I will have up the Spiderweb Jasper. I also have Spiderweb Jasper on its way. Once again, this is part of the Buddhas that I've got coming. And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure that my Spiderweb Jasper actually has red webbing on it. Also, next week, the aim is for me to load the video on Carribean Calcite. And I've got to say that Carribean Calcite looks extremely like hemimorphite, which by the time I've finished doing this video, I'm going to go back, take a look at my hemimorphite and make sure it's got the correct name, because I can tell you that gave me a bit of a surprise when I saw that. But anyway, I've got some Carribean Calcite coming too. So, my friends, this week's video has not been as short as I would have liked it to have been, considering that I did one last week. But either way, it's still fairly short. For now, though, I'm going to say, look, thank you very much for being part of my journey. Love you, leave you. Going to catch you on the next video. If you've got questions, leave a comment. If you've got comments, just opinions, views, that's fine. Leave a comment as well under the video. And what might I say too, because I always forget to say, yes, if you find anything of value on my videos, please do consider giving us a thumbs up or a like or whatever, so that I remain motivated. But anyway, until next time, take care. Love yous, leave you. Bye-bye.